Good. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Monmouth County. My name is Reverend Rhea, and I am one of the newest members here. And I signed up for the Social Justice Committee and will serve this congregation the best way I can. I haven't started yet, but I look forward to attending the first meeting. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you have arrived at this beloved place, you are welcome here. This is why I joined, and I am so grateful to be here. Our mission is to create community, transform ourselves, and transform the world. I draw your attention to the backside of your orders of service for announcement and service information for next week. For those on the live stream and for video viewers, the order of service link is available to you in the YouTube service description box. And after the service, there are refreshments going to be served in the community room, and people of all ages are welcome to visit with one another. If you are new to us, please do check our website, UUCMC.org, where you can sign up to get all the latest news of the congregation by email. We look forward to getting to know you. And please put your devices on silent as we enter the worship together. Welcome again to this place of love and hope.
Thank you, Michael, for that evocation of the Passover Seder meal with a piece entitled after the first words of the four questions that ask, why is this night different from all other nights? It's an important part of retelling the biblical story of the Hebrew people's liberation from slavery in Egypt. Only one time in my adult life was I ever the youngest at the Seder and therefore tasked with asking the questions. I had known in advance and rehearsed them in Hebrew, only to find out that my host didn't really do the Hebrew thing. I said them in English instead, but it was still cool to ask them. It must be a joyous moment for a kid to have that honor. So, Chag Sameach, happy Passover. I'm the Reverend Dr. Craig, minister of this congregation, and it is my joy to be here with you in person, on the live stream, on the recording. In fact, our theme for the month of April is joy. Nothing to me says joy quite like cherry blossoms. The image on the slide is from the greatest profusion of cherry blossoms this side of Japan, Branch Brook Park in Newark, where I spent an afternoon with clergy colleagues earlier this week. And the two religious observances from which we draw inspiration this morning, Passover and Palm Sunday, though both involve life and death circumstances, both also feature much joy on the road to greater freedom and liberation from the usual ways of doing and thinking about things. One of the most joyous occasions of our congregational year, part of gathering the financial resources for the year's bills, is our annual auction, where many of you donate your time, talent, and goods that others might donate their money in service to UUCMC. And there's great news. For the first time since the pandemic, so for the first time in 6 years, the first time in my tenure with you as minister, we will have the live portion of the auction live and in person. Yes. Saturday, May 3rd from 4 to 6 p.m. Appetizers, drinks, raffles, abundant fun with your MC, PJ Kaspar. You want to be there, yes. But you don't have to wait until then to make a difference. The silent auction is already open at the congregation's Auctria website. Check your e-blast for details and begin to feast your eyes and bid on an incredible array of items. And you can still donate an item, a gift card, party of your own devising. Do so also on the Auctria site. Be a part of the joy this year. For our call to worship, with the word worship understood in its original meaning of a shaping concern for all that is of worth, I've chosen a piece by a UU minister and celebrated poet, entitled simply, Passover. They thought they were safe that spring night when they daubed the doorways with sacrificial blood. To be sure, the angel of death passed them over, but for what? 40 years in the desert without a home, without a bed, following new laws to an unknown land. Easier to have died in Egypt or stayed there a slave, pretending there was safety in the old, familiar. But the promise from those first naked days outside the garden is that there is no safety, only the terrible blessing of the journey. You were born through a doorway marked in blood. We are all of us, passed over, brushed in the night by terrible wings. Ask that fierce presence whose imagination you hold. God did not promise that we shall live, but that we might at last glimpse the stars, brilliant in the desert sky. Come, let us worship together. Like so many religious observances, our own rituals, while filled with proud joy, are drawn from times of terror and uncertainty. As an aid to the Unitarian Service Committee's work of ensuring largely Jewish safe passage from the Nazi regime across heavily patrolled borders, a symbol was commissioned as an official stamp for exit papers. Thus was born what has become the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith movement, a flame in a chalice cup. And it must be said we are living in newly perilous times for a faith tradition that proudly proclaims the worth and dignity of all people. And we are engaged in understanding what kinds of precautions we need to take to assure us of the greatest safety from rising tides of retaliation and hatred that emanate from the highest office in the land. You perhaps will have noticed that there is a sign on the back door indicating that it will be locked after 10:45 a.m. on Sunday mornings. You will also see some new efforts toward digital security, changes on the website involving people's identities, and the removal of full names from our outward-facing pages and live streams. These are the opening acts of engaging new, sensible practices for a new era that it's hard to believe we're in. We invite you to be part of that effort by joining a task force on safety being put together by our council moderator, David, and our board president, Tom. And we thank you in advance for your flexibility in these efforts. Just to say that when we light our chalice, let the import of what it signifies sink into your consciousness. It lights our way forward, even when darkness becomes a larger part of what we are facing. This morning, I invite our worship coordinator, Lisa, to light our chalice fire. Our chalice lighting words are written by the community minister at the UU Church of Muncie, Indiana, a part of the country experiencing some of the greatest backlash against the love that UUism embodies. Nonetheless, they write, "We light this chalice in celebration of joy, the flickering flame of a candle, a flame that shimmers, that dances, that cheers, a flame that heartens and encourages us in hard times, the welcoming flame of this community." Our opening hymn summons the spirit of Passover liberation for our own times. I invite us to rise in body and our spirit to sing number 220 in our gray hymnals and on the screens. Hymnal singers, please note we are eliminating the chorus following verses 2 and 4. Bring out the festal bread. Once upon a time, there lived two siblings named Leah and Sam. They were Jewish, and Passover was their favorite holiday because there was so much to do. The day before the Seder meal, they would help sweep the house clean of all breadcrumbs, help set the table with special Passover dishes, and put out an extra chair and cup for Elijah, the prophet. Then on the evening of Passover, the relatives would arrive and the Seder would begin just after sunset. One year they came to the place near the end of the Seder where their father poured wine into Elijah the prophet's goblet and asked the children to go and open the door for him. This was one of their favorite parts because it was so mysterious. They ran to the door and looked up and down the street. They didn't see anyone except the new children next door. They just moved there from Haiti, and they were playing in the yard. No Elijah. Leah came back to the table feeling a little sad. "Where is Elijah?" she asked. "Every year we pour him wine and open the door, but he never comes. What does he look like? Will he ever come for Passover?" Her parents looked at grandmother, and grandmother said, "I have seen him, though I didn't realize it at first. Elijah comes in many disguises. I saw him long ago, one cold day, just before Passover. I was minding my younger siblings, and my mother was resting. There was a knock on the door. I opened the door, and there stood a beggar. He was dressed in rags and had an old sack over his back. I saw that his shoes were full of holes. 'May I come in and sit by your fire and have some food?' he asked. 'I am so hungry and cold.' I knew we were not a wealthy family. My parents worked hard and still had barely enough for a simple meal, let alone a Passover feast. 'We have nothing extra for you,' I said, and I shut the door. I peeked out the window and saw the beggar walk to our next-door neighbor's house. The neighbors had even less than we did, since their father had died. Their mother worked very hard, taking in sewing, but she had many mouths to feed. I was sure she would turn the beggar away, but I saw her open the door and invite him in. The next day, my mother was cooking our Passover meal, and I was setting the table. Suddenly, there was a cry from the kitchen. Our dog had grabbed the chicken from the counter, knocking over the apple raisin pudding my mother was preparing. When my father got home, he found us sitting and crying. There was no money to buy another chicken or to make another dessert to celebrate our Passover. We were still sitting and crying when we heard a knock on the door. It was our poor neighbor. She smiled at us and said, "It seems that misfortune has come to you. I would like to invite you to celebrate Passover at our home this evening. I don't have much, as you know, but somehow I was able to make more matzah balls than usual from my flour, and my soup kettle is full." My parents thanked her and promised to bring the foods they had prepared that had not been spoiled. And after our neighbor had gone, my mother asked me, "Who was that knocked on our door when I was resting yesterday?" And I told her that it was a beggar, and I told him we didn't have enough. And I sent him away. "And where did he go?" my mother asked. "To the neighbors," I shrugged. My parents looked at each other. "Do you know who that beggar was?" my father asked. "Well, no." "That was the prophet Elijah," said my mother. "He comes to see if we are helping to make the world a better place by being welcoming and generous." Well, we had a wonderful Passover with our neighbors. We found that when we shared from our kitchens, there was plenty for all. When it came to the part in the Seder where my father poured wine into the Elijah cup, I asked if I could go open the door for Elijah. My parents smiled. And grandmother finished her story by saying, "I didn't see Elijah again, but ever since then I try to treat everyone as if they were Elijah. And I find that there is always enough." When grandmother's story was finished, everyone was quiet. Then Sam asked, "What do you mean that you treat everyone like Elijah, grandmother?" And grandmother looked at them and asked a question. "What was the last kind and welcoming thing that you did for someone?" "I helped my teacher carry some books because she was tired," Sam answered. "I invited the new girl to school to play with my friends and me at recess," said Leah. "And how did that feel?" asked grandmother. "Good, warm and happy," they replied. "That is how it feels to treat everyone like Elijah," grandmother said. Then Leah jumped up from the table. "I think Elijah would like us to invite our neighbors to celebrate Passover with us. Can we invite them to our Seder?" Mother and father looked at each other and smiled. They knew the new Haitian neighbors weren't Jewish, yet this was exactly the spirit of welcoming that Elijah taught. "Yes, go and tell them that if they would like to join our Seder meal, they will find our door open. It seemed that Elijah did visit that Passover day after all. Let us usher our younger people to their small group family ministry teams by blessing them with our voices raised in song. Go now in peace. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the Spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. You may have noticed a couple of weeks ago we began a new periodic segment of our worship services, a social justice minute, meant to suggest ways that each of us can be part of solutions to the problems that our fellow citizens, people around the world, and indeed the planet itself are experiencing. I invite Molly and Ria to share some initiatives with you.
Hi, I'm Molly. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I was talking to one of our members, Sarah Fischel, this morning, who's head of the Citizens Climate League, lobby rather, and she was saying that the best way to a healthy climate is through democracy. It's doing the little things we can to create democracy. So I want to remind you that each week in our e-blast, we have many resources for action. Right underneath Reverend Craig's monthly letter, there is a section Lisa has put in, and it's showing links to various different resources. Some of the resources are the UU Social Justice Group, and they will give you information about national concerns that you can take action on. Citizens Climate Lobby, the Side with Love, which is an action center with weekly updates, and then UU Faith Action New Jersey, which I am happy to see is on the back side of your program today. This coming week, we're going to be looking at specifically at in 2023, we had a bill was passed in the state for free menstrual products for students in grades 6 through 12. So our action is going to be, we want to find out if the schools are actually implementing this new law by providing these products to students. So a resource is going to be given this Friday. I'm sorry I didn't have quite the resource to give you, but of what we can do about it. So the first thing you can do is, if you know somebody between the ages of 6 to 12th grade, you can ask them, especially if they're a female person, if they are noticing in their school that they have free menstrual products in their bathrooms at school. If they do, then you can call the school administrator and the school district and say, "Attaboy, way to go, we're really happy to see that." If they're not, we will have an action, a package to help you help the school with the resource to get that going, and you can gently nudge them or forcibly nudge them to provide that resource. Because what do we call it? Menstrual poverty is really a big deal. That stuff is expensive. Tomorrow, our Social Justice Committee is meeting at 7 p.m. via Zoom. You can always access the meeting by going to the calendar that's on our website. Go to the News tab, and the calendar is there, and then you go into Monday and click through, and the Zoom, and you can go into the Zoom link at 7 o'clock. We have different focuses that all of the above groups that I listed have. We have environmental focus, housing focus, LGBTQ rights, reproductive focus, and criminal justice focus. There's also has been a gun lobby focus as well. So we hope to see you there at the meeting. Thanks.
Good morning. My name is Irene, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. For the past few weeks, you may have noticed on our service program and in the e-blast, a notice about a diaper collection. That's something unusual that we haven't seen before. And it happened that the Tuesday morning Covenant Circle decided we needed a service project and we wanted to extend outside our own community here. And we learned about the baby pantry in Neptune, New Jersey. This is a totally charitable organization that exists on donations, and they offer to needy families who have already been pre-approved because they've been interviewed and they've applied, and we know they are at the poverty level. They provide for them diapers, wipes, and they also have baby equipment and food and clothing. And so we've taken this project on, and so far our very generous UUCMC community has sent us at least 50 boxes of diapers and a couple dozen wipes. And we have 2 more Sundays after today to collect those and bring them over to the baby pantry. They dispense 20,000 diapers a month, which is kind of amazing. They have 200 families that are collecting these diapers and using them, and they have a waiting list of 120 families who've been approved, but the funds aren't there yet. You can also make a donation, and that is provided for, that information is also provided for you in the e-blast. So thank you all for what you've done for this group, and we appreciate the generosity that we always see here in UUCMC. And this is part of how we can contribute and help the whole aspect of social justice that will be of meaning to this congregation. Thank you.
Every week in this congregation, we are provided with an opportunity to practice generosity. This is your invitation to contribute to the well-being of our congregation and to our social justice partners through the good works of organizations which receive half the monies collected each month. Our Share the Plate recipient for the month of April is the Sierra Club Foundation, the nonprofit arm of the Sierra Club, promoting a shift away from a fossil fuel economy to a restorative, renewable energy economy that will be better for people and nature. For those of you present here in the meeting house, the plate will be passed by the ushers. You may also join this time of generosity via text, send your offering by mail, or charge your contribution online with a memo designating an amount to the Sierra Club Foundation. Please give generously.
Passover, Palm Sunday, commemorations of huge events in the development of two primary world religious traditions, and stories accessible to us as inspiration for greater freedom awaits as the result of moments in our lives taken with conviction. Among the messages of Passover is liberation is not easy. It requires that we listen to the voices of the oppressed and that we act in new ways that begin to draw us onto the path of greater wholeness for all, often beginning with our own freedom from the oppression of the safety of habits and routines. We heard something of that risk on the level of one Jewish family in our story Wisdom, when its members stretched themselves into a new freedom of welcoming by inviting in neighbors from a tradition very different from their own. In the process, of course, symbolically inviting in and welcoming Elijah, the prophet of old. Liberation is never a comfortable process. It involves risk. The feast of Passover and the celebration of Palm Sunday are forever tied together in the history of the story's reception, for it is written that it was precisely to celebrate Passover that Jesus of Nazareth took the decision to enter the gates of the regional center of power with a message of liberation that not only flew in the face of the Roman Empire that was oppressing his people, but which unsettled the temple teachings of his day. But also beyond historical ties, Passover and Palm Sunday are allied by a theme of the risk that liberation often requires. The people who gathered at a welcome rally for Jesus' arrival into town risked being associated with a freedom movement that had already run afoul of the authorities. And of course, Jesus knew full well he was making a risky decision, and he paid for it with his life. When I was growing up, as I think I've told you another year a while ago, Palm Sunday was one of my favorites, mostly because we got to process as a congregation of all ages, holding our palms and singing all glory, laud, and honor, the music of which Michael has just gifted us with an improv. I'd wait for that line in the first verse, to whom the lips of children made sweet hosannas ring. It always felt like an acknowledgement that we children might have something to say that was worth singing about. So as a kid, I felt included as we sang and marched, first in a big circle inside the sanctuary, and then walking outside onto the city sidewalk and circling the building with our joyous music and enthusiasm. I remember that it would often be quite cold. Since I grew up in Buenos Aires, we would be some distance into the fall season by Palm Sunday time. But the warmth of our singing warded off the chill in the air on those glorious mornings. Sometimes, because of the political climate, either internationally, the result of the policy decisions of English-speaking nations, or due to domestic agitations of one kind or another, my English-speaking congregation wasn't able to be outside, because to raise our voices in a foreign tongue would have made us a target of political violence. I was sad those years because I missed the excitement of taking our message to the streets. It was in those more scary times, however, that we inadvertently sidled out more closely to the biblical story we were reenacting. For the message of Palm Sunday, like that of the Passover meal for which Palm Sunday was prelude, is precisely that delivering a message flying in the face of the powers that be is risky business, for which it takes a special kind of courage and determination. The teachings of Jesus were all about freedom and about love. He preached about humility. He comforted those who mourned, healed those who were sick. He sought justice for those at the margins of society. And he showed mercy for those who didn't or couldn't or wouldn't measure up to his ideals. He was a peacemaker, but was willing to confront power, even when the espousing of freedom values put him in danger of persecution by Roman authorities and religious purists alike. For 3 years, his ministry had restricted itself largely to the northern province of Galilee, an area known for radicalism compared to the southern province of Judea, where Jerusalem had been under the iron fist of Rome for 25 long years. Jesus had built up a following across a wide swath of the outlying territory, advocating for the people in a time of empire, and with that following, he'd built a reputation that had not escaped the notice of the authorities. As the time of the Passover celebration drew near, with the fabled story of liberation from slavery in Egypt at the center of its ritual, crowds began to travel to the Jerusalem temple, the center of theological leadership for the Hebrew people. And Jesus decided that it was time to take his own message of liberation to the big city, to the very heart of power. The story goes that Jesus did not come quietly. Instead, in a mockery of the trumpet fanfares and grand parades of horses and military might that heralded the arrival of the Roman emperor to town, Jesus rode in on a lowly donkey, with ragtag crowds of supporters of all ages and genders waving palms, throwing their garments on the road for him to ride across, cheering him with cries of "Hosanna in the highest! Blessed is the King," the very words reserved for the emperor. As another well-trod Palm Sunday hymn intones, ride on in majesty. Hark, all the tribes, Hosanna cry. O Savior meek, pursue thy road with palms and scattered garments strode. Palm Sunday is a commemoration of a street demonstration carried out at the heart of a city besieged with pilgrims, a protest stage happening that struck anxiety into Roman authorities already on edge during Passover time. Within the week, Jesus would be executed as an agitator and his leadership silenced. That his message of love and hope and freedom would prove more powerful than death, well, that's the story of Easter. But I believe it's important to give Palm Sunday its due, for this day is a celebration of activism, of daring, of courage, conviction, of riding on in a majesty of authenticity. Its message of love, freely given and received, paired as it was in history with the Passover story of the deliverance of the Hebrew people, and despite the dangers all around, embodies our monthly congregational theme of joy. Not an easy, lighthearted happiness, but a hard-earned joy in the face of despair, a joy in embodying one's whole self with one's whole heart. It's always puzzled me that Palm Sunday isn't more commemorated in contemporary Unitarian Universalism, because at its heart, it's not only an advocation of so many of the principles and values we hold dear. Palm Sunday takes the message to the streets. Palm Sunday is about showing up, about taking risks, about proclaiming the truth in the public square, with some pageantry thrown in. Sounds UU to me. In my mind, I see us waving, if not palms, then handmade signs of our message, making some noise, siding with one another in the name of love and hope and freedom, cheering one another on with a latter-day equivalent of ride on in majesty. And I know that quite a few members and friends of this congregation are showing up now, in a time where our democratic ideals are succumbing in real ways to would-be imperial might. You are showing up with your bodies to rallies and protest gatherings. You are showing up with your time and financial support to help those in need. You are showing up in your advocacy of those most threatened by the current regime, for our transgender and non-binary siblings in spirit who are targeted in an increasingly mean-spirited way to incite what amounts to an angry mob, and for those caught in the morass of immigration laws being warped to instill terror and fear among people often already at the very margins of being able to support their families and stay safe from the terrors of their home countries from which they sought safe haven. You're each doing something you can do in your own context and within your own current ability, and you assume some risk in doing so. In the poem for this week's Wednesday meditation, we heard words that, while framed in the Passover story, speak to each and every one of us who struggles and strives to be on a journey toward greater wholeness for ourselves, for those we love, and for those who travel the journey with us. But to ride on in majesty into a better tomorrow, we need to assume some risk, and we may well feel like we'd rather wait for a better moment when we feel more secure, when we have more time, when we are more financially solvent, when the kids are through school, when. But like the Hebrew people of old, there comes a moment when we must act, whether the bread is fully baked or not. In the words of Rabbi Rachel Barenblatt, if you wait until you feel fully ready, you may never take the leap at all. And infinity is calling you forth out of this birth canal and into the future's wide expanse. Trust that what you carry will sustain you, and take the first step out the door. Sometimes we must take the moment that is presented to us. Many of you know that I've been preaching, in a sense, that very message, take the moment, in a concert in New York City, a concert that began right here at this pulpit, with songs I paired with messages of hope over the course of the past few years. Tomorrow night in a ceremony in Manhattan for that very concert, take the moment, I will be presented with a Bistro Award, the highest form of ritualized encouragement given to cabaret performers by seasoned critics. And in my acceptance speech, I will thank you, for you have inspired me these past 6 years as your minister to manifest all my truths, to act within the dictates of my heart, to live out values so dear to Unitarian Universalists, and to be, in my sense, a manifestation of the activist spirit of change that many of you go out of your way to enact. My words, whether in song or not, and though they represent a huge turning point in my own self-disclosure and vulnerability, may not change a law or give someone physical shelter from a storm. But they can serve as encouragement and inspiration. And my point is, there are things each one of us is capable of doing, no matter our abilities or income or age. Each of us is able to make a difference in some way. We are being called into a better future, often called to ally ourselves with people very different than ourselves, called to ride on in majesty. I pray that we metaphorically pour extra cups of welcome for the Elijahs who must be our partners in the upcoming struggles. I pray that we summon up a Palm Sunday sort of awakening to take the moment we are given and make some change. Boots on the ground, money in the mail, making the phone calls, making the visits, summoning up courage, marching with conviction, reaching out to someone in need, listening with full attention to someone else's story, or bravely telling our own. Because there is joy in embracing the spirit of Passover and Palm Sunday, even in the face of ignorance, hatred, and cynicism. Ride on, UUCMC. May it be so. I invite us into a time of prayer and meditation. And I think we have the time. You know what we're going to do? We're going to acknowledge the gift that we provide one another by our assembling together. And I'm going to invite us, as we have done in the past and haven't done in a very long time, to rise in body and our spirit, to greet the holy in our midst by greeting one another. Tell each other what they mean to you. Okay, ding, ding, ding. Ding, ding, ding. Ding, ding, ding. If you can hear my voice, clap once. If you can hear my voice, clap twice. If you can hear my voice, clap 3 times. All right. You can continue all this love in the community hour that follows the service. Thank you so much. And let's settle our minds and our spirits, holding one another's lives with intention, and listen to these words of Palm Sunday inspiration by the late UU minister, the Reverend David O. Rankin. Palm Sunday is found whenever we are serving a noble and unpopular cause with selfless devotion, holding to the ideals of truth and justice, whenever we are seeking to uplift the fallen, to comfort the brokenhearted, to strengthen and encourage the weak and hopeless, whenever we are working bravely and persistently in the face of abuse and criticism to establish more equitable relations in the world, whenever we are sacrificing our lives on behalf of what we believe to be in service of love, in service of all humanity. That is Palm Sunday. Amen. As our closing hymn, it's one specifically written for Palm Sunday, but I think it needs a bit of preparation. Its meaning is difficult to parse merely by singing it through. So it's written by John Howland Lathrop, longtime minister at First Unitarian Brooklyn in the mid-20th century. It's entitled Hosanna in the Highest, the very words said to be uttered by people greeting the arrival of Jesus to Jerusalem. And its message is that many times in our history, since that first Palm Sunday, prophets have arisen with rallying cries of liberation that quickly become rote for those in power. And the people actually heeding those cries are often held to be fools. The hymn goes on to say that if we are truly to enter a time when peace reigns, we will have to look with terrible honesty at our history and make changes in our behavior and practices that ensure love is at the center of our efforts toward greater liberation for all people. So I invite us to rise in body and or spirit to sing number 262 in the hymnals and on the screen. I don't think we need to play it through because we heard it subconsciously while we were greeting one another. 262. Well, you didn't hear any of that. That's okay. But on Saturday, May 24th, again at the Laurie Beachman Theater, newly renovated for the occasion, I'll perform the concert one more time. And I hope to see some of your faces there to encourage me on. It's been such a privilege to sing my own truth, maybe for the first time ever in this concert. So I thank you so much. Our closing words of benediction come to us from Justice Warrior and UU minister, the Reverend Joe Cherry, and bring us back to our theme for the month with a realistic appreciation of the nature of true joy. Joy is hard. Joy requires us to feel safe enough, to be safe enough to open to vulnerability. To feel joy, you must be brave. Joy walks into a room after the space has been cleared of shame, cleared of doubt, cleared of self-recrimination. Joy is hard. Joy is hard, and joy is worth the hard work of preparation. Preparing oneself and setting down all the defenses, all the shoulds and could-haves, and all the should-not-haves and might-haves. Joy is worth the work. You are worth the work. You could start small. The simple pleasure of your favorite tea. The grand freedom of a full belly laugh. Invite joy to be your companion. Let us go in peace and joy to bless and to change the world.